Unmatched is famous for having an extensive roster of playable characters, but with so many matchups available, it is extremely difficult to play them all. In this series, we will be analyzing a variety of matchups in detail and hopefully discover some hidden gems. Join me as we explore the latest matchup of the month. If you're a fan of the channel, consider supporting me on Patreon. For as little as $1 per month, you can help me continue to bring you premier Unmatched content. Unlock exclusive rewards by becoming a patron today.
What's up guys, Zero Skater here, and we are finally back with another matchup of the month for October, this time featuring Moon Knight versus Alice. And Alice is one of my favorite fighters from way back in Battle of Legends Volume 1, so I'm super excited to be showcasing this matchup today. And before we do, I just want to briefly apologize for the lack of content lately. I've had a lot going on in my life, but I just want to say I really appreciate all the support from everybody out there. So thank you so much, and huge shout out to Chocolate Rain for the awesome Invisible Man tank top here. I've been loving the tank, man, so I really appreciate that. But I want to get into this matchup. But before we do, as always guys, be sure to attack the like button if you enjoy the video, and subscribe for more Unmatched content. But with that said, let's jump on over and check out matchup of the month for October, which is going to be Moon Knight versus Alice. Alright, so here we are on Vorpal board as always, checking out Moon Knight to begin with. Now Moon Knight is super interesting because he has 3 different forms and 3 different hero ability cards. So the first of which being Moon Knight, which says at the start of your turn you can move up to 2 spaces, then at the end of your turn you change to your next identity, which is Khonshu. Now you are a 16 health solo fighter, move 3, which is very good. I think most solo fighters could really benefit from being move 3 since they don't have nearly as much map coverage as fighters with sidekicks. But anyways, it really helps Moon Knight being move 3. But then his next identity, Khonshu, as we all know, he adds +2 to the value of all his attack cards. He also does not take damage from effects other than combat damage. So that means no fatigue damage, no auto damage, only pure combat damage, which is really, really strong. And of course, at the end of your turn, you change to your next, which is Mr. Knight. He adds +1 to all of his defense values. So then at the end of the turn, again, you cycle through. So at the end of every turn, you're going to be cycling your identities and get different buffs based on that current identity. Moon Knight giving extra movement, Khonshu giving extra attack and negation to auto damage, and Mr. Knight adding defensive buffs. So very similar to Alice here with the +2 strength or +1 defense, but the different part about Moon Knight is that his is on a constant cycle. You don't get to choose based on which cards you're playing, which identity you go to. You are automatically locked into having to switch at the end of every turn. So he's a very tempo-based fighter. You really need to maximize your effectiveness with each individual form. And as we'll see, a lot of the cards that we're about to talk about, they are better utilized at different times in different forms. So the first card being I'm Not Real, we'll just go over these briefly. So it's a 4 value attack. After combat, you can change to your next identity. This is the only combat card that actually lets you switch, and it's a May, which is very good because you can pick whatever, the situation calls for. So then we have That's Why I Always Win, a 3 value red. You can boost this attack. So it's actually a Medusa second shot, which is very, very strong. Granted, you don't have the 4 boost values that Medusa has, but you do have Khonshu, which is a +2. So this card can get massive upwards of 8 damage for a single attack, which is very strong. Then we have That's the Part I Like. After combat, if you won, you look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck. You discard one of them and you put the other 2 back in any order. So not only does this mill a card off your opponent's deck, putting them closer to fatigue, you can also pick off a key card of theirs before they even have a chance to play it, which is different than something like Eliminate the Impossible from Sherlock, because you have to have drawn that card for Sherlock to discard it from your hand. And if you've drawn the card, that means that you've probably had a chance to play the card. Even if it was suboptimal, you can play it very quickly once you draw it in order to at least get some use out of it, whereas this card can snipe it out of your deck before you even have a chance to get it. So this card is insanely strong. You also get the knowledge of the next 2 cards that are coming up. So hand knowledge is really good, deck knowledge is really good too. So if your opponent takes a double maneuver turn, you know exactly what they drew into, so you can plan around that. So this is one of the best cards in the deck, bar none. It's just an incredibly powerful card. Next card's going to be a totally sane thing to do. It's only a 2 value, versatile. You may deal 2 damage to both fighters in the combat. Keep in mind, Conchu, of course, doesn't take auto damage. So even though your opponent will be taking the 2, if you're Conchu, you will not. So this is a good attack because it's a 4 value attack as Conchu with 2 auto damage, makes it essentially like a 6 value attack. Even if they feint it, they still take the 2 because its printed value is buffed. And you don't take anything. And you can also defend with it as Conchu. And 2 defense is better than no defense, of course. And dealing 2 damage back to them is pretty good. So if they hit you with a 4 when you're Conchu, you defend with this. It was an even 2-to-2 trade, which is pretty dang good. The only real punish is something bigger like a shift or a log or something of the sort. So this is a really good card as well. And don't be afraid to use this card when you're not Conchu, because sometimes there are situations where you do want to deal the auto damage, even if you're going to be taking it yourself because the trade is just favorable given that game state. The next card is going to be good enough for us. 4 value versatile. You may draw 2 cards, and if you do, take 2 damage. So same thing as Conchu. If you attack with this, it's a 6 value attack. If it's fainted, cool, you dealt 4. If not, I mean, you get to draw 2 cards, and it's a 6 value attack still. So really powerful attack as Conchu. Also a great defense card as Conchu as well, because they hit you with, let's say, a log. They're expecting you to defend with totally same thing to do, and they want to get big damage, but surprise, you defended with a 4, you only took 2, and then you drew 2 cards, and you can push the aggression and tempo there because they're attacking you when you're Conchu, which is bad for them because that means you're about to smack them. So this is a great card here. Past and Present Intermingle is a very tricky card. You add the boost value of the top card of your discard pile to this card's value. So this card can be a really big attack. If you use one of the schemes, which have 3 boost values, and you're Conchu, this can go up to a 7, which is very strong. But also, I think even better is you can defend with this card as Mr. Knight for like a 5 value reliably and even upwards of a 6 value defense. So really, really great card to fit a lot of different situations. It's not like too tricky in terms of how it impacts the game state, but it's just a really beefy card, and having a really big value versatile is really good. The next card we're going to see, he does have a set of 3 feints. That's pretty standard. Keep in mind you can attack with a feint when you're Conchu in certain situations against Alice, maybe, into a looking glass, which is really good. So those tricky offensive feints could be pretty powerful. Not to mention, Mr. Knight, defending with a feint, you're basically playing Adjust Your Imagination, which is very strong as well. So feint is extra good in this deck. Then you have Fist of Conchu. If you won the combat, move the opposing fighter up to 4 spaces. That's a pretty decent amount of movement, and if you defend with it when you're Mr. Knight, it's kind of like a leap away almost. You only have the option of moving your opponent, but that's still pretty dang good. You can also attack with it as Conchu if you want to push them away for whatever reason. Like a lot of times I see that late game, you want to push them away just so they have to boost and waste a card to hit you, or they're just going to be double maneuvering and taking fatigue damage when Conchu doesn't. So Fist of Conchu is pretty good in some situations. Let Your Insanity Guide You is definitely the worst card in the deck. One of the worst cards in the whole entire game. I don't think you can argue how bad this card is. It's only a 1 value versatile. After combat, discard the top card of your deck, draw cards equal to that card's boost value. So there's so much RNG to this card. You're milling a card from your own deck, which is putting you closer to fatigue. You're drawing an unreliable number of cards. You might want to only draw 1 or 2, and you might end up drawing 3, right? Or you might want to draw a bunch, and you mill a feint, and you lose a feint, and you only draw 1. So the RNG on this card is horrible. Its value is horrible, being only a 1. You never want to attack with it really as Conchu because there are so many better attacks. You don't really want to defend with it because, again, there's better defenses, and defending with this in the late game oftentimes is almost worse than just taking the hit undefended. I've seen some very niche cases where this card is actually useful for the card draw if you're desperate, or in the very late game when you're actually out of cards completely, and you can defend with this as Mr. Knight for a blank 2 value defense, and you don't lose anything because since you didn't discard anything off your deck because it's gone, you don't draw any cards. So there's some very, very niche case uses for this card, but almost always you're going to be using it for a boost on something like That's All Why I Always Win, or for boosting your maneuver. So it's a pretty horrible card, but it's funny when it actually works. Then we have We're All in This Together, blue 3. If you won the combat, draw a card. Very basic. It's pretty mediocre overall. I mean, you can draw pretty reliably when you play it as Mr. Knight, which is decent, but overall, nothing to write home about. Then we have Madness Will Keep You Alive. One of the first of 2 schemes, and both schemes have a 3 boost value, which is really important because it sets up for things like past and present intermingle, and that's why I always win, to be able to potentially bump up to an 8 value. But this scheme says recover 2 health, which is really strong. If you started your turn in a different space, gain an action. So super interesting card because you can either use it as a pass and heal 2, or if you just are trying to push the tempo and be aggressive, you can move first and then play it, and you retain your action and you still get the heal, and you can keep on doing whatever you're trying to do. So you can really be flexible with this card, and I love the decisions that this card forces onto you. And it's just super fun, and it's a very, very good card in general. And one of the best cards in the deck, Travelers of the Night. It lets you move your fighter up to 4. You can move through opposing fighters, and you gain an action. So this is obviously used to, when you're Moon Knight, you take center stage, and you set up for Travelers of the Night into Khonshu turn, because you can Travelers as your first action, move through sidekicks or whatever are in the way, and hopefully reach your opponent without even having maneuvered or used an action, because you gain 1 from this, and then you double attack them as Khonshu. So it sets up really powerful swing turns from Khonshu, and it's definitely a card that makes your opponent think twice about their positioning, and they really just need to beware of this card at all times when you're going into Khonshu turns, and they need to play around it. So any card that can make your opponent play differently, even though you may or may not have the card in hand, or you may or may not use it, anything that forces your opponent to react and play differently is a pretty dang powerful card. So Travelers of the Night, awesome card in this deck, and amazing artwork as well. So again, Moon Knight is all about timing. You want to maximize the efficiency of all your cards, and you really need to think a turn or 2 ahead to consider which identity am I going to be in this situation. And honestly, the natural cycle of the identities works really well, because a lot of times Moon Knight will be used to take center stage, and then Khonshu, you're going to go from center, you're going to go out to the edge of the map wherever they ran to, you're going to smack them for damage, and then at the end of your turn, you're going to swap into Mr. Knight, which will give you a defense buff for their counterattack on you. So a lot of times they don't want to throw their big attacks into Mr. Knight, so maybe they run away, and then your Mr. Knight turn is relatively safe. You kind of just probably double maneuver, and then when you go into Moon Knight, that's when they're going to want to come attack you again. But if they come attack you again and you're not in center, that's fine. If you're off towards the edge of the map, then you're going to run back to center with your Moon Knight turn, and then you're ready for the Khonshu turn. So they only really want to attack you like 1 time during the cycle, and that's when you're Moon Knight, because they don't want to attack into Khonshu if they're melee, because then they have a double counterattack coming at them from Khonshu, and that's terrifying. They don't really want to attack you as Mr. Knight, at least not with anything big, because then you just get your extra defense buff, and so they're probably just throwing little bait attacks when you're Mr. Knight. They want to throw their real attacks when you're Moon Knight, but that's, again, only once per cycle, and then it all repeats, and I'm Not Real can really speed up the cycle and get you back to Khonshu faster and whatnot. So it's really hard for the opponent to play around, but it's also really hard for Moon Knight to play as. So you got to really know what you're doing with Moon Knight to maximize your efficiency once again. And I don't think it's easy to do. I'm definitely not a Moon Knight player myself. I can do okay with him, but I'm not the best. But Chad, who I'm going to be playing against, as always, my co-host for this matchup of the month, he is he's quite the Moon Knight player. So it'll be really fun and interesting to hear what he has to say about this matchup and watch him play it, because Moon Knight, again, he's really tricky, but he's a blast to play. So if you haven't tried out Moon Knight, I would highly recommend it. But yeah, he's all about tempo and maximizing your identities. So with that said, let's jump on over and talk about the next one coming up, going to be Alice. All right, so next up is Alice, again, one of my favorite fighters. I don't get to play her as much in competitive play as I would like, but she really got to shine in Arsenal format, and with a lot of the new matchups she has into the Marvel fighters being very good for her, I think she's becoming a little bit more relevant in the competitive scene, which is exciting. But Alice, similar to Moon Knight, is all about form changes, essentially. But unlike Moon Knight, Alice's form changes are based on her cards and her effects on her cards rather than a continuous cycle at the end of every turn. So if we look at Alice, she is a 13 health melee fighter with the Jabberwock as her sidekick, being a melee fighter with 8 health. So Jabberwock is very beefy, but Alice is tied for the lowest starting health in the game other than Deadpool, but we don't talk about Deadpool here. But anyway, she's a move 2. And when you place Alice, you choose whether she starts as big or small. So when she's big, you add +2 to her attacks, and when she's small, you add +1 to her defenses. So that's really good if you can optimize it. I mean, if every combat you entered, every combat interaction, every time you attacked, you got +2, and every time you defended, you got +1, that's insane value. That's so much extra damage and health, essentially, due to this ability. So really powerful if you can utilize it well, but it's not always easy to time everything correctly. So let's take a look at her cards. And Snicker Snack being the first one, 3 value red. After combat, if you won the combat, look at your opponent's hand and choose a card for them to discard. So at a 3 value, that's not easy to win, but of course when you're Big Alice, this is a 5 value, which wins against almost every defense in the game, unless it's fainted, but even if it's fainted, you dealt 3 damage because yours is essentially like a printed 5 into their 2. So Snicker Snack is an incredible card and can really swing games in your favor, at least the tempo side of it. The next card being Oh Frap Just Day. After combat, change size. Plain and simple, but it's a printed 4, and when you're Big Alice, this is a huge feint punish of a 6 value into a 4. It's like a log, and the size change can be good in certain situations as well, because if you want to avoid the counterattack, similar to how Conchu smacks and then goes into Mr. Knight, well, Alice can smack with Frab Just Day for a huge attack, and then go to Small Alice for their counterattack. So really great card here. And then the other side of the mushroom is a 3 value red. Move Alice up to 3 spaces and change size. So it's a decent attack. It gets you movement of 3 spaces, which means any 2-move fighter would have to maneuver and boost to go and follow you for a counterattack. So it's a pretty good card. But if you notice, these 3 red cards are the only Alice reds in the deck, and they all have a 4 boost value, which is very important. So the boost value lets her move up to 6 spaces unexpectedly, which is huge, but also interacts with one of the next cards we're going to see in a second. So, Momentous Shift. You know it, you love it. In Alice's deck, this is an absolute menace of a card. It goes when you're big up to a 5 and then bumps up to a 7 because of Alice's ability, and even if canceled by a feint, it's still dealing 3. So most of the best defenses in the game are 4 values, so if this goes up to a 7 and you smack over that, 3 damage. If they feint it, 3 damage. Shift is almost always guaranteed at least 3 damage in most all matchups and most situations. So an incredibly strong card in this deck especially. And then Manxome Foe is the card I mentioned with the boost values, because essentially during combat you blind boost this card. And blind boosting, again, you mill the top card of your deck, you add that card's boost value to this card's value. So if you're Big Alice, this can get upwards of a 9 value attack with one card, which is just ridiculous. Sure, you lose a card in your deck, but you don't lose an extra card in your hand, unlike a lot of the other big attacks that bump up to this amount, something like Beast Form or Forever Hide, or the boost card that we saw from Moon Knight can get up to an 8, but you have to boost it from a card in your hand. So this card, Manxome Foe, you lose a card in your deck, but you don't lose any hand advantage, so this is an insanely powerful attack and can be used in certain situations on defense as well, and it's an any, so even Jabberwock can use this card. So incredible card in this deck. Then we have 2 Skirmishes. Skirmish is great as well because it's a printed 4, so it can go up to a 6 like a log if you're Big Alice, or a 5 value defense if you're Small Alice. And again, Jabberwock can use it, so really flexible card in this deck. And then Mad as a Hatter is Alice specific, but you get to move each of your fighters up to 2 spaces after combat and change size. So you can surprise people by swinging Jabberwock in for maybe a pin situation, or just getting him in range to just maneuver and attack instead of having to boost. So Mad as a Hatter is pretty good for surprising people in that way, but it's also just a solid card because if you're Big Alice, you can smack with a 5, and if you're Small Alice, you can defend with a 4, and it provides movement and size change, so really good card there. But it's only a 1 boost value, and so is the Skirmish, so is the Shift. So those are the 3 cards that you really do not want to be hitting off of Manxome Foe, because it's a complete whammy, getting only a +1 to the Manxome Foe and losing some of your best cards, honestly, being Shift, Skirmish, Hatter. Those are some of your best cards. You don't want to be losing those. At least if you lose some of these reds, yeah, they're great cards, but that 4 boost value really makes it worth it if you're dealing so much damage with it. So next card, I'm Late. 2 value, pretty weak. Move Alice up to 5 spaces, which is a lot of movement, and then you change size. So this is great to smack as Big Alice and just deal maybe a little bit of damage, but then get way away if you're worried about them coming to attack you for a counterattack, because then you're small and you're 5 spaces away, you're pretty dang safe. So it's not really for dealing damage, but it's for getting out of danger. And just managing your size changes. And its 3 boost value is actually really important. You oftentimes use this to boost your maneuvers to be able to reach people. It's one of the best cards to use for that. So it's a nice little card, not the best, but it's got a lot of utility. And then we have your standard set of feints. That's great. Again, Big Alice smacking with a 4 value feint. That's pretty awesome. And defending with a 3 value feint is amazing as well. So feint is really good. And then you got your standard set of regroups as well. Big Alice regroup being a 3 value can actually a lot of times maybe pick off 1 health sidekicks and draw you 2 cards because they won't want to defend against Big Alice when the sidekick's probably going to die anyways. But even just to bait out a feint, and get a damage through, or even small Alice defending with a regroup is actually okay because it's a 2 value defense and you'll draw a card, and that's not the worst thing. So regroup is better in this deck than in others. And then Looking Glass is really one of the best cards in Alice's deck. 2 value defense, you choose 2 effects after combat, either draw 2, recover 3, or warp Alice to any space. So being a 4 boost value, again, super important for movement, and if you hit it off of Manxum Foe, that's pretty huge damage. Otherwise, if you play it, and even if they smack you with a log, let's say, you can choose to heal 3, and that's essentially like playing a 5 value defense into a log, which is like the best you're going to get. That's insanely powerful. And you also get to pick one of the other effects. So you're going to either draw or warp depending on the situation. And all 3 of these effects are really, really good and can definitely be used given the game state. And if they don't smack you with something a 5 or higher value, like let's say they hit you with a 3 and you defend it with Looking Glass, or maybe they hit you with a 4, but you're small Alice. So then you only take 2 and you heal 3, so you net recover 1 health and full block their attack, and you still get these other effects. It's just crazy. And with the card draw that Looking Glass can provide, Alice can be super, super aggressive at times, because a lot of times if you're Big Alice, they might want to attack you because you don't have your defense buff, and maybe if you defend, a lot of your defense cards will change you into small, so maybe they're trying to bait you into small size, but you just defend with Looking Glass, you heal back, and you draw cards, and then you just get to double counterattack them as Big Alice, which is just incredibly good. So Looking Glass, I don't have to preach this card. It's one of the best defenses in the game. You all know that already. Let's move on. So the first Jabberwock card, Jaws That Bite, super strong attack, 4 value red. If it's fainted, cool, 2 damage. Otherwise, after combat, deal 2 damage to any one fighter adjacent to Jabberwock. So if they play a 4 value that's not a skirmish to push you away, then you'll deal 2 auto damage. So this is a really threatening card, and you got to note, though, that it's any one fighter and it's mandatory. So that means if they did something like a leapway or a skirmish defense against this, and then they push Jabberwock adjacent to only Alice, Alice will take the 2 damage. So that is a really crucial thing to note, and you got to just be careful of it. But Jaws That Bite, super strong card, especially when you look at the next one, Claws That Catch, which is a 3 value that turns to a 5 if it's attacking the hero. So kind of like a momentous shift with a different condition trigger. But the coin toss between Claws and Jaws is really good because you want to skirmish Jaws, because then you can full block it and avoid the auto damage and maybe even damage Alice. But you don't necessarily want to skirmish Claws, because Claws will still deal damage over the skirmish. Now you want to feint Claws because then you only take 1, but you don't want to feint Jaws because then you take 2. So the mind games with these 2 cards work out really well in Jabberwock's favor, and both just generally powerful attack cards makes Jabberwock quite the threat of a sidekick. And then we have a couple of schemes left here. Eat Me moves Alice up to 3, changes size. It's a pass. It's the only pass in Alice's deck. You have 2 copies, and it's the schemes are the only way to size change at will without having to engage in combat. So that can be very crucial. So you just gotta know when to use these properly. But this one is the only way to surprise somebody when you're small Alice and you're not adjacent. It's the only way to be like, surprise, I'm Big Alice and I'm attacking you. So with that in mind, the opponent obviously is going to play around this. They're going to make sure they're positioning. If they don't want to get Eat Me into a Big Alice attack, they're going to position 4 spaces away instead of 3 spaces away. But similar to Travelers of the Night that we talked about with Moon Knight, if there's a card that exists in your deck that forces your opponent to play differently, even if you don't have it, that's a good thing. So the last card, Drink Me, draw 2 cards, change size. This one I often boost with a lot of times because drawing 2 and changing and not giving you any movement means you already have to be like set up in a favorable position, which your opponent will probably not hand to you on a silver platter. So this one's harder to use, but there are cases where maybe you get them in a pin, and then this card is great if you have the opponent pinned, because drawing the cards is great and managing your sizes even better. But otherwise, I like to see this hit off a Mangsum foe a lot of times, or I'll use it to boost my maneuver. It can be used in certain situations, but not the greatest card. So overall, Alice is another very tempo-based fighter. You need to push aggression and keep on the opponent, put them on a clock, right? Because every attack you're throwing as Big Alice is chunking away a decent amount of their health. So on their side, it's like, well, how many attacks can I survive? And they need to play accordingly. You want to put them on as short a clock as possible. And so you're going to have to manage your size change as well. And you want to try to be big more often than not, because that's how you're going to win a game. Small is nice when it works, but it's not your win condition, because Alice, as you see, only has 2 passes. So she's not going to win in fatigue. You have Mangsum foe that mills cards from your own deck as well. And it doesn't work out that way. You don't play a defensive game the whole time, because it's just not very effective. So you really need to push your aggression. And just looking at numbers, I mean, +2 is better than +1, right? So Big Alice is best, and you need to just smack them hard and fast and just keep the pressure up. So the card draw is your friend most of the time. A lot of decks, you want to kind of try to avoid too much card draw, because then you're pushing yourself towards fatigue. But Alice is just trying to push damage. So take that card draw when you can get it. Hit them as often as you can. Don't be afraid to take some trades, right? If you're going to smack them for a 7 and deal 3 damage, and they're going to hit you back and deal 1 or 2 damage, so what? You want to take trades, because your damage output is probably bigger and faster than theirs. So she's a super fun fighter. Learn to utilize Jabberwock. Don't be afraid to defend him with something like a skirmish or a feint if needed, but try to hold your Mangsums and shifts for offensive Big Alice attacks if you can. But otherwise, Jabberwock doesn't have a lot of defenses, so you are going to maybe have to you're going to have to take some hits, and you got to try to figure out when's the best time to do that. How long do you need to keep Jabberwock alive? How important is his map coverage and his damage output? Or can you afford to let him go and just let Alice do the rest of the work? So those decisions are a lot of what make a good Alice player. And it's tricky, but I think with some practice and with some experience, it's a lot of fun to try, and it's really rewarding when you can actually pull it off. So with that said, let's talk about a few key points in this matchup in particular before we get into the games. So I think one of the most impactful things that Alice is going to have to watch out for is the offensive feint, particularly from Khonshu, because a 4-value cancel is incredibly strong against Looking Glass, because not only does it deal damage, but it cancels Looking Glass's amazing effects. So not only that, but also if Alice is small, a lot of times she wants to defend with her size change cards like Hatter and I'm Late in order to change big, ready for a good counterattack. But Khonshu can attack with the feint, deal some damage, most likely, and prevent that size change to essentially lock Alice in small form. And if she's stuck in small, Moon Knight is not threatened at all. The only thing he has to watch out for is the Eat Me into a surprise Big Alice attack, but there's limited quantities of Alice's schemes, so she's going to have to rely on combat interactions to change her size. And so this is a very tempo-based matchup, so the offensive feint is, I think, going to be a key thing to look out for here. So another interesting thing for the Moon Knight player to consider is that's the part I like, and how are you going to get that to trigger? Oftentimes you just attack with Khonshu with it, and it's almost guaranteed unless they feint, but then if they feinted, well, you dealt 3 damage anyways, so you're not really that upset about it. Now, this card can not ever guarantee to trigger, even against Jabberwock, because Mangsum foe exists, and you can play Mangsum on defense even for Jabberwock or for Big Alice, and you might hit a 2. It's very likely that you hit at least a 2 value with Mangsum. I think that's the average, is maybe between 2 and 3. So this card cannot be used reliably on offense, and it can also not be used reliably on defense, because of course Big Alice is going to hit so hard that she probably hits over this and prevents it from winning. And even Jabberwock can attack with his claws, that even if Mr. Knight is defending with, that's the part I like, it's a 4 value and claws is a 5. And Claws, of course, is always going to trigger up to a 5 because Moon Knight is a solo fighter. So he's, of course, always the hero engaging in the combat. So this card is not guaranteed ever to trigger, and so I think that's a big detriment because a lot of times he relies on this card to get those crucial cards removed from the opponent's deck or to really cripple them in the late game when he gets to not only mill a card from their deck, putting them closer to fatigue, but he also gets to know exactly what's left, and he gets full knowledge the rest of the game if there's only 2 cards left in deck, let's say, and he knows both of them. So definitely a tricky card to use in this matchup and much less effective than in pretty much every other matchup in the game. So much like Moon Knight wants "That's the part I like" to trigger, Alice wants Snicker Snack to trigger because it's incredibly devastating when it actually goes off, because a 5 value attack that gets to look at your opponent's card and rip the best card out just sets her up so well for aggression. And Moon Knight, though, rather Mr. Knight in particular, has a lot of ways to full block the Snicker Snack and prevent that effect. So Good Enough for Us bumps to a 5, and Past and Present can easily bump to a 5 with any 2 boost value card face up on the discard pile. And even outside of Mr. Knight form, Past and Present can potentially block Snicker Snack if there's a Scheme face up in the discard pile. So Moon Knight can use that to his advantage and has a lot of ways to at least deter Alice from even wanting to throw the Snicker Snack for the fear of a full block. And again, just forcing your opponent to play differently is quite good. Even if you're just bluffing and don't actually have the card to stop it, Alice is going to have to be wary. And it's just going to be really interesting to see if the Snicker Snack can trigger and when. And if it does, how impactful is it going to be? And I imagine if Snicker Snack can actually get through Mr. Knight's beefy defenses, I think it is going to be very impactful in that game. So honestly, I kind of struggled coming up with specific card interactions here for this matchup because there are so many little unique interactions that make a big difference in the game, but it's more so about the timing of all these cards than it is the minutia of their effects, right? It's about how well can Moon Knight utilize his stat buffs and how well can Alice utilize hers. And I think it'll be better to just highlight them in game and just have you guys watch and see how it all plays out, because there's, again, so many little interactions. I can't really explain them all and highlight each one, or else we'll be here forever. And I know you guys want to get into the content. So if you can think of any specific card interactions that you think I missed or that I should have highlighted, go ahead and put them down in the comments because I would love to hear them. But again, it's just more so about timing and the tempo of the game, which is really interesting. And this matchup is very, very even. In general, I think Alice is going to want to be the aggressor because she's not good in fatigue. And conversely, Khonshu doesn't take fatigue damage, so he's very good in fatigue. And I think Moon Knight has a higher health total overall, if you're ignoring Jabberwock anyways. And so I think Moon Knight is going to try to make the best out of Mr. Knight and his damage mitigation from that to stave off Big Alice's aggression. Because normally Moon Knight players, they want to push aggression with Khonshu and put their opponents on a clock, but I think it's actually the other way around in this matchup, where Alice is trying to put Moon Knight on a clock, and Moon Knight's less focused on Khonshu and more focused on Mr. Knight. So that'll be a really interesting kind of dynamic to see in this matchup. And Moon Knight in general is very versatile because he can play towards a lot of different win conditions given the matchup and the game state. And Alice is more or less straightforward, where she just wants to push damage. Now, that doesn't mean that she's bad, because there are a lot of ways to optimize Alice and time things very well and can lead to great success. And definitely having Jabberwock is going to be a big deal, actually, not only as a meat shield, but as map coverage, so she doesn't have to boost as much or as far or as often. And also potentially getting a pin with Alice and Jabberwock is very deadly against pretty much any fighter. That's one of my favorite things to do with Alice, is set up a pin scenario, which can be done pretty easily with all of her big movement effects. And then you just beat down on them while they're stuck there and can't move away. So maybe we'll see Alice go for a pin against Moon Knight here in these games. And I think that is one big advantage she has, is having the multiple bodies there. And Moon Knight in general is just going to want to play a lot of defense, back away, force Alice to boost, only probably ever attack when he's Khonshu just for some damage, and then go back to being defensive. So It's a really fun matchup, a lot of cool dynamics, and I'm really excited to show them off. So let's not make you wait any longer. We will just get into the games and see what happens with Moon Knight versus Alice.
Welcome everybody to Matchup of the Month for October, and this time I am super excited because this is going to be so much fun. I've done this matchup before, and it's a blast, and it is Alice versus Moon Knight. So one of my favorite fighters of all time being Alice. I don't get to play her nearly as much as I would like, just because with competitive she's not the greatest, but she definitely has potential. And Moon Knight being a super cool new fighter, probably my favorite from the new Marvel fighters. So joining me again is Unmatched Chad, as always. So how you doing, Chad?
Doing great. I again super excited for this matchup too. I know the previous two that were voted on. Cool ins and outs for all of those matchups, but I did feel like it was favored in one way or another. And this one, I know we'll get into our thoughts a little later, but I think this one there's a potential for either of us to go 2-0 here. Which I think is cool. I felt in the previous ones a 1-1 was pretty was to be expected.
Right, based on the matchup.
Yeah,
This one's a little
exactly.
more even, so
Yeah.
yeah, anything can happen. So before we get into the actual games, do you have any like initial thoughts or predictions?
Predictions. I've never played this matchup. I know you've played
Okay.
it a number of times, once in ladder, and I
Yep.
remember you just kind of wrecked Moon Knights across the board. So I I am a little nervous.
But they
I
weren't your
think.
Moon Knights.
Say what?
But they weren't your Moon Knight.
Hey, thanks. Yeah,
So
I like to think that I have a pretty good Moon Knight, able to make a lot of little good calls with him. So we'll see. I hope to put on quite the show. So I tend to think it's probably Alice favored due to her consistency of always smacking large
hmm
versus Moon Knight, only doing so a third of the time. And I think it's really going to come down to that. I in one of my videos I mentioned that I don't think I've ever lost to Alice in fatigue. Like if it comes down to fatigue, I think I've never lost a game where once Alice's deck runs out, I've been able to stay alive long enough, and she takes too much damage and she dies. And Moon Knight is excellent at fatigue just because Conchu doesn't take fatigue damage. So I definitely think that Alice's goal here is to kill Moon Knight.
Yep.
So I think for the Moon Knight player, it will be the decision of where's his damage coming from in order to kill Alice before she kills him, or is he going to be able to play in such a way to survive until the end of the game? I think he's got to make that decision of is he wanting to sit in Conchu a little more often or in Mr. Knight form a little more often with his red fours and such. So.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. So Alice is going to pretty much be the aggressor in the matchup. Moon Knight's more so trying to survive and get those big hits in when he can with Conchu. Um, there's not too much auto damage in Alice's deck that Moon Knight has to think about, so that Conchu buff is not necessarily applying.
Mhm.
More so Mr. Knight is going to be a big pain because that takes away half of Alice's, big bonus. So on the flip side, Alice can be small on Conchu turns as well, just like, Moon Knight can be Mr. Knight on big Alice turns. So both of them have the ability to +2 attack and +1 defense. So it's going to be interesting, but I don't know. Looking at health totals, Moon Knight has like 20 effectively, and Alice effectively has 19, but an 8 health sidekick. So I think how well Alice can keep Jabberwock alive is going to make a big impact.
Mhm.
Being able to body block on Conchu turns. So it'll be interesting. Something that some viewers wanted maybe us to go a little more in depth in was maps.
Okay.
So before we choose a map and start the games, how about what kind of map do you think is going to make the biggest impact one way or the other? My initial thought was that Moon Knight probably would like something such as the Marvel maps with items, because I think with, like we said, Alice having to be the aggressor overall in the long game because she won't win in fatigue, she has to approach more often, I think, and that would let Moon Knight use the item buffs on defense. That would probably be an initial thought of mine.
Yeah, I do agree with that, and we can potentially see something similar with like hanging gardens in terms of if the opposing fighter is often forced to approach you, then you can sit on some of these critical locations and basically get some high ground
Hmm.
bonuses, more often than not. And if you're able, as we mentioned, if I'm even if you're small, but I'm on high ground as Conchu, I basically negate, your being small, which is
Right.
extremely good. So yeah, I could see a similar logic there for that, but it could also backfire, right? If you have to end up somewhere on low ground,
Yeah.
Alice is good there. But similar, because Alice does have a sidekick that she can use to kind of sit on some of these extra spots, as we mentioned. Keeping Jabberwock alive is going to be important. So if you are able to sit Jabberwock on these purple versatile spaces just in order to keep them alive, or use those tokens up so that I don't have access to them, or a combination of both, right? You can kind of kill two birds with one stone by using those. So
Yeah.
I do see there being. I don't think this is the worst map for Alice if it did end up being, or either one.
Yeah, that's a good point. I want to just throw out real quick is having two bodies makes it twice as good with the items because you can use them more frequently or at least camp the spaces, whereas a solo fighter can't do that. So yeah, maybe it's not as bad as I would think for Alice. I think though Alice probably wants a really small map, something like Raptor Paddock or Hiorat, or maybe even T-Rex Paddock. I think that's her ideal case, so that she can hit more often than not when she's big.
I agree. I think the map that I, as the Moon Knight player, um, would be most afraid of in this matchup, I think, is Raptor Paddock.
Hmm.
Just because you could use potentially a 6 value skirmish, right, which is going to win
Yep.
um, almost all of the time, unless I am Mr. Knight and I have a 3 boost value card on top.
Yeah, one of your schemes on top of the discard and you play your past and present. Yeah, that would
Yeah,
be quite a defense, but obviously I can just play around that.
exactly. And if that situation occurs, it means that I played a scheme as a like the last action
Of Conchu.
of my Conchu turn, right? So
Right.
that's yeah, it's probably not going to happen there. So
Yeah.
then, even if I am Mr. Knight, you're guaranteed to kind of win, potentially shove me into the pit, maybe keep Jabberwock there. And we all know, or at least I know, how scary Alice can be when she's pinning the opposing fighter because,
Yep.
once again, Moon Knight is only getting big attacks 1/3 of the time. If Alice is getting them all of the time, then she's just able to beat down the opponent and either kill them right then or back off and then just be in such a good position that she can just play. She's like, okay, I only need 2 or 3 more attacks, so
Yep.
I'll just play the longer game then.
Yep. Yep.
So I think that's the map that I'm most scared of. I think in terms of maps that are probably good for Moon Knight, one that I like here is Soho.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons I like Soho for Moon Knight is, well, it's particularly against ranged fighters, so that we won't go into that for here. But his bunny hop is pretty good, just for maneuverability, kind of among these zones. And with the bunny hop, I'm meaning how Moon Knight, gets 2 movement at the start of his turn when he's moving Moon Knight, and that can, often get him out of, potentially dangerous situations from, just for example, if you run up and you pin me here, I can kind of bunny hop here, maneuver here, then maneuver here, and kind of like literally get to the other side of the map.
Yeah.
Um, which it's just super helpful to do so.
Mm-hmm.
So I generally prefer this map for Moon Knight. As I mentioned, especially against ranged fighters, but I'm assuming it would do similar things here.
Yeah.
I just once again have to avoid getting pinned, so I got to be careful there.
Yeah, I think any bigger maps are going to benefit Moon Knight more. Except for maybe Yukon because it's Yukon. And Alice has
Yeah,
2 bodies and Moon Knight doesn't, so.
yeah.
Um, but let's, I guess, you want to try to get somewhat of a neutral map like we normally do?
Yeah, I'd love to. I think we can kind of rule out this one.
Yeah, no
As much as I
Rattramatic.
love this one, I agree with you. And if Alice or Jabberwock is sitting in the middle, she only needs like 2 boosts to get to you, and that is incredibly good.
Mm-hmm.
So much better than her 3 or 4 boosts if she's forced to use those,
Right.
because those are few and far between. Not that she doesn't have great boost values, but it's just better to force her to use those rather than a Jabberwock card or
Yeah,
a regroup.
exactly. What do you think about maybe Baskerville?
I was thinking about Baskerville, but I do think it is, because I only have one body. It is a very close map, and if you're sitting on a portal, you can get anywhere in 4 movement as well.
Right.
And so I feel that's very similar to the reasons why I was discounting this.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not against it. I think, I'm not
Well, I'm
against
fine
it.
with Soho, I think. Alice is fine with Soho. So if you want to
Soho
do Soho, we can do
might be a
that.
good one to try.
Yeah, all right. Let's go with
Yeah.
that. It seems pretty even. All right. Here we go. Let's shuffle up and see what I get. What do I want to do here?
I think I plan to keep.
I will keep as well. We'll see how this goes. And I will start Jabberwock there.
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, man. Good luck. Have fun.
Yeah, you too.
So I'll start with a maneuver. I'm gonna boost with a regroup.
Shocker.
Yeah, right. So 1, 2, 3. And Alice 4. Just because I know as Moon Knight you're going to want to be taking center stage. So I will take center stage in the meantime.
Yep.
And then I will have Jabberwock attack with this. Alright. So that's 5 over 3. And your turn.
I'll attack Jabberwock.
First action attacking Jabberwock, huh?
Yeah.
I was going to take it, but I'll just throw a regroup, because why not? 1, 2, 3. And then I draw. And do you want to swap?
I do.
You will, okay.
I'll attack you.
Oh, man. You're really going for it, huh? Only 2 cards in hand. That's dangerous, dude. Let's defend with a Manxum. So yours is a 6. Mine is going to be a 5. 2
Sucks
boost
to lose
value.
that card though.
Yeah, it's okay. Rather that than like a, a shift.
Yeah.
Like I
Right.
always do.
It's a 1 boost. Yeah,
Yep.
no joke, man. You always get burned by
Yeah,
that.
it's horrible. All right, and then you draw your 2 cards.
Yeah.
I assume.
It's optional, but I'm obviously going to choose to.
Yeah.
So. Yep. All right.
Okay, Mr. Knight. I'll take a maneuver. Well, I'll go there, and then I'll go 1, 2. I'll maneuver again. 1, 2. And I am good there. Your turn. Loving the music.
I know, man. It's great. I'll maneuver.
Notice I positioned here so that if you double maneuver, no matter where you go, you're within single maneuver range of me. You'd have to boost to get farther. Not that you need to know that, chat, of course, but just for the stream.
Question is, do I willingly pin myself? Attack Jabber.
And you're Mr. Knight. So what could this be? The worst case scenario is it's another I'm not real. Otherwise, if it's a red 3 that you'd have to boost, you're losing quite a bit of hand advantage to get rid of him. The purple 2 that does auto damage would kill, but you'd have to take auto damage yourself. So I'm really not scared of too much. I'll just take it. Yep. Dead Jabberwock. Do you want to swap?
I'm trying to think about it. So you're gonna maneuver. So since I don't care about auto damage, I don't think so.
Yeah.
I want to give me more Khonshu turns.
Yep. Alrighty. So I will then take a maneuver. And I will boost with the Jaws that you so rudely took away from me.
So just so the chat's clear, if you had defended Jabberwock and kept him alive, I would have switched to Khonshu so that I wouldn't have had to worry about the auto.
Yep.
I just wanted to share that.
Smart. Now what do I want to do here? Attack. So you have a 4 into a 7, you'll take 3.
Thinking it was the Snicker. Didn't want to lose that to the Snicker.
Yeah. Alright, your turn. Snicker Snack is quite the threat.
Maneuver. Maneuver again.
Alright.
Alright, you're up.
I'll maneuver. And I can just stay on the opposite side, which makes you lose a Khonshu turn. Or I can boost in and attack you.
The classic problem.
What do I want to do? Go in or back off? That's the question. If I take center, you could potentially do a traveler's turn. And that's pretty scary. I'll go 1, 2, and then I'll maneuver again. And I'll back off. Your turn.
Be a boring game.
I don't know, is it? Are you gonna just run away? Little baby Khonshu? Looks like it. You could have chosen an aggressive...
No, you chose, John. You
No,
chose.
no.
Don't you. You.
How am I supposed to get to you, Chad? You were 6 spaces away.
You're Alice, man.
That doesn't mean I have the cards.
It's true. It's true.
Okay, Mr. Double Maneuver. I will maneuver. And I will maneuver again. And I will take center. And I will discard this draw card that I do not need. And you can go.
Small maneuver. Then I'll attack you with this.
What on earth would you come in and attack me with? Going into a Moon Knight turn for you and Big Alice adjacency.
I didn't want to just keep running away, John.
Well, yeah, double maneuver overdraw would be bad, and then you'd still be going into a Moon Knight turn, and then I would just go hit you anyways. So, good point.
It's also for the content.
The content, right, it's for the content. Trying to put on a show. I see, I get it.
I was thinking about right away,
I
but where's
get it.
the fun in that?
Right, that's no fun. Alright, we're gonna play, a skirmish.
Good skirmish.
Yes, alright, that was the only card I was really worried about. I didn't want you to bash me away.
Yep. I was thinking that because I am weak, boy, you could take it and you'd be fine with that. But then I'd move you away, or you could play Looking Glass to try and just get like good hand advantage. But then I would still win. So so that was my thought.
I mean, yeah, that was the best option I think you had, and I considered that, and that's why I didn't want to take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you're Moon Knight, and I am Big Ol' Alice.
Big ol' Alice.
Big Ol' Alice. What does Big Ol' Alice want to do? Attack you? First action? Alright. 2 damage, no draw, and let's get a peek at what you got there.
Wasn't sure if the snack was coming out yet.
The snack. Oh, I am feasting today. I could get rid of that's the part I like. Or I can get rid of good enough for us.
I think those are your two options.
I think good enough for us is what I'm going to
Yep.
ditch. So you have 2 feints, a useless trash card, a blue 3, and the punch in the face.
Don't you dare slander. Let your insanity guide you like that.
Yeah, okay. Second action, I will attack you again.
It's looking rough for our hero, kids.
I mean, is he really a hero? Or is Alice the real hero?
I'm the hero.
Excellent. 3 more big damage. But now I got to swap to small, which I'm not super happy about, but that's okay. Your turn. And at least I'm sitting in center, so if you want to run, then Conchu gets further from center.
Maneuver. Maneuver. I'll stay there.
I think I will... I think it was smart to stay there, first of all, because why run further from center? And am I really going to attack you with hand disadvantage into Conchu, which could be just auto damage for you when I'm small?
Yep.
No way. So smart to stay in place. And in that case, I'm going to maneuver 1, 2, and
This is
maneuver
seeming
again.
rough for me. I mean, maybe I shouldn't have gone in for the double attack because I did have trash to discard.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just like struggling to figure out like you get to control the tempo the whole time, you know?
Pretty much, yeah.
So that's the part I'm struggling with. Is like what's my best option here in order to see if I can combat that, you know?
Yep. All right, your turn. That's the thing, like you mentioned earlier, right? Moon Knight is locked into his forms as the turns go, and Alice can basically switch at will. Of course, it's not guaranteed because she needs her combat effects or scheme effects, whatever, to go off, but it's pretty reliable. I'll play Hatter. Yeah, nice feint. Locking me in small, very smart. That's kind of what I expected.
Yeah.
But at least
Especially
I...
having two feints from what
Yeah,
you saw.
right, but at least I full canceled your attack, so 4 to
Yeah.
4 because I'm small and you're Conchu, so not the worst. Okay, and it's my turn,
Yep.
and you're Mr. Knight. This is a interesting spot because I know you have the punch in the face, and if I hit you small, and you're just gonna rip one of my cards out for free, which I'm not a fan of. I think I'm just gonna maneuver, and then I'm gonna eat me.
Okay.
So I can move up to 3 and change size. And I will go there, and it's your turn.
Maneuver. I think I can't get more than 4, right?
Not without a boost. You have to boost up onto the rooftop. There's one single space that costs 5. Yep. Right there. But you only need a boost of 1.
Yeah, and you might as well. I mean, you would force me to overdraw. I feel like boosting with this is fine.
Yeah. Again, because like you don't want me to just boost with a Jabberwock card or a regroup and easily get to you, I gotta boost with something of value, so.
Yep, that and the fact that if you do just double maneuver, then I was gonna overdraw anyway. So
Right, unless you came in at me, which of course you probably don't want to do as
yeah,
Moon Knight.
yeah.
Okay, so my turn, I will maneuver.
I think this getting snacked was really the best
Oh
for you.
yeah, totally.
I was planning on using that offensively if I could have.
I'll boost with I'm late. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So you forced a better boost. Your Moon Knight. I'll attack.
We'll throw this.
Yep.
The shift.
Yep. There's 3. And it's your turn.
First action, I'll attack you.
Moon Knight. So this could be the punch, and you're expecting like a looking glass, and you want to trigger your effect. But if you do that and then you maneuver your Khonshu, but then you're at 3 health and not very far away, so then I can probably just lethal you. Because you don't have any more 4-value defenses. Unless you have past and present, but even a 4-value loses to a big Manxum most of the time. So, do I even care if it's the punch? I think this could also be a feint, just because if it's a feint, then good on you. Okay, so I take 2, and that was your first action?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have the possibility of swapping. So I'm going to heal and draw.
I'll swap.
Okay.
I'll attack you.
Attacking again? No way. I'll feint just to stop shenanigans. So I take 3. I really wish I had, like, my Manxum here. Dang. Well, you don't have a lot of even defenses left, honestly, so let's make an attack. Okay, so that's good. At least I cancel that effect, but no damage. I'm going to attack again. Excellent. 2 damage there. Not
1.
lethal yet. Oh, 1, because you're Mr. Knight. You're right. Ugh. Okay, not excellent. That wasn't great. But your turn.
Alright, I'll maneuver. I'll maneuver again. I'll boost with one of these.
Yep. So that guaranteed can't get to you?
Yep.
Okay, well done.
Thank you.
My turn then?
Yep.
So you are Moon Knight?
Yep.
So I will maneuver, and I'm just going to have to go take center at this point. At least as center as I can. I'll maneuver again. Go here. And it's your turn.
So I'll use my bunny hop here. I'll maneuver. I'll attack you.
So it could be a Fist of Khonshu would make the most sense. I don't think anything else makes any sense. Oh, this is a tough spot, guys. My hand is not ideal for this situation. I should have this game, but there's like a small chance that if that's Fist of Khonshu and I don't draw into the right stuff, if I defend, it just puts me into small, which is the problem. I will play this. Yep, as expected, it's the Fist. So I take 1. I will move first. I mean, it doesn't really matter because then you're just going to move me 4.
Yep.
So I'm just going to stay there.
Sounds good. It's a nice view up there. I wanted to take you to the place we first met.
Right.
Yeah.
How kind of you.
Yeah.
I'll maneuver. I'll go there and then I'll eat me.
Yep.
And I'll stay there. Your turn.
I'll maneuver.
Ah, dang it. You got the healing. It's so annoying.
I'll maneuver. Your turn.
Alright. I'll maneuver. 1, 2. Maneuver again. 1, 2. Your turn.
Maneuver. I'll maneuver again. Go here. Yeah. And it'll be your turn.
Moon Knight. Okay. I'll maneuver. Boost with Looking Glass. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And I know you set up that 5-value defense like a pro, but I will attack. Okay, you take 1, and I will move myself here. And it's your turn.
So you only have size changes left, which is interesting. For defense and then a regroup.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't forget regroup.
That's right. I'm really trying to think through my options, and this music is in my head, man. Oh, I'll attack.
I'll take it.
Ooh,
I assume you're
dang! I
not
thought
gonna.
for sure you defend.
I think you're not gonna use the effect. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. Come on, are you sure?
That's right.
Live on the edge.
I'll maneuver. I'll boost.
Yep.
I'll be good there.
I'll maneuver. And then I will think about what you have.
For defenses, I have a feint, a past and present, and that's let your insanity guide you.
Right. And you're Conchu now? Or
Sorry,
you're
yeah.
Moon Knight? You're Conchu. This is tough. What happens if I just take center? Nothing. You just double maneuver. So I have to go in. So I'm going to boost with this jab roll card.
Mhm.
1, 2, 3, 4. And
Good to know that you don't have lethal.
yeah, sure is.
for for those in the stream, so he's got one more Mangsum, and he's got a couple of boosts that would kill me, but he wasn't immediately just gonna run in and smack me with that, which makes me believe that he doesn't. He has the cards with the high boost values that he would need. So it's either a 50-50, meaning there's not like a 4 boost and a 3 boost up top. So he's weighing the options there.
I'll attack. Big money, no whammies.
Yeah,
Big
let's
money,
see
no
it.
whammies. Here, it all comes down to a 50-50. You ready?
All right.
There we go. Big money, no whammies. Oh my god, it's a whammy. I lose
It's a
now.
whammy, buddy.
GG. That's so stupid. It all comes down to a 50-50.
I know, man. That's Alice. That's why you
Oh
gave
my
up Alice,
god.
man.
Yeah, it's so annoying. All right, your turn.
All right.
Because
I'm
you have a
not out of the
5
weeds
value
yet.
defense. I knew you had a 5 value defense.
Not out of the weeds yet.
Not completely, but it's much better for you now.
I'll attack you.
First action is Conchu. What do you have left for defense?
An insanity and a
Faint.
thing. Yeah.
The problem, too, is you're going into Mr. Knight, and that's not cool.
Yeah.
I'm going to take it. Oh, let's go. 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, because 3 kills you, so that was super risky.
Yep. And you
But
lose a card off the top.
yeah, I mean, you can see that that was my only hope for winning too, because if I ran away for the chat, if I ran away, he would just boost to me and smack me with a 5, and I couldn't do anything about it.
Yep.
So I might draw all my cards here because I've got 2,
It's
3
likely.
sitting in here. Come on.
2.
2. That's best case scenario for me, I think.
Yeah, I don't like that. I wish you hit the feint and only drew 1, then I'd have a chance.
I'll attack you.
Yeah, no, I have to do this. And I'm probably just dead over it. Yep. GG, man. Oh my gosh. Oof.
Oh my goodness.
50-50,
Dude, that's one for
man.
the books.
50-50.
What a good game, man. Dude,
Yeah.
there it is. Yep.
Yep. I had the 50-50.
I knew it was going to come down to it, man. I knew it.
Mm-hmm. I was hoping you were hitting with a feint that last turn right there. I guess you probably wouldn't, but I was also hoping that you'd hit the feint and not draw into your red and that I'd live, because then I'd be able to just boost you with mushroom and kill you with this, because you'd have no defense if you hit the feint.
Yeah, I didn't math it out. but I think I should. It was actually safe for me to use that weird card in any scenario.
Yeah, it won you the game. That was crazy.
Because if I hit a 3, I draw all 3 of my cards, and I've got a red and another yellow, so that wins me the game. If I hit a 2, then odds are I get my other red. But if I don't, I can use 1 to move for 3. No, the thing is, I could use it. Yeah, I think if I drew into my 2 yellows there, I would have lost.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was
Yeah.
hoping, and that's why I wanted you to hit the feint because I wanted you to draw into a yellow, but with
Yeah,
hitting
I
the
knew that
2,
I had the feint, so I was good there. Oh my goodness.
that was a RNG fiesta at the end.
It all came down to make some not killing me and then
Dude,
insanity. Like,
I know. Oh, it's brutal.
but insanity was a good bet for me there because
Hmm.
if I don't hit, if I hit it's a 50-50 that I hit a 3 and then I win. And then if I hit the other 2, the odds of me drawing a card, the other red, were good for me too.
Hmm.
So,
Yeah, and you attacking just forces me to size change. If I size change, then I didn't have lethal
yeah,
because you could defend with even this would be a 2, and my only if I defend with this and I have to boost with this, then my only attack is this, which is a 2.
yeah,
So, yeah, I had to take that first attack to have a chance.
yeah, exactly.
And then I was lucky that it didn't kill me, but then I was just hoping that you wouldn't draw what you needed, but you did. Oh,
Yeah.
that was
Wow.
a crazy game.
Dude,
So,
honestly.
this map totally played in your favor, though, because of those turns where you could have just run 7 spaces away.
Yeah.
Because even though Alice can boost like a maniac with 4 boost values multiple times, it's, 6 spaces isn't enough.
Yeah.
Because it is from center, of course, but once we go, it's like you're wherever, right? Over here, let's say I'm in center, so I go after you, I hit you, but now you run like here, and now all of a sudden I can't make it.
Yeah.
Or maybe here, whatever, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1,
Yeah.
2, 3,
Wherever.
4,
Right.
5,
Yeah.
6, 7. Yeah, right there.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you just like it's kind of a back and forth kind of thing. We take center, I go after you, and then you run away, and then I have to retake center, and then go after you again the next turn. And that like rhythm is thrown off even more so by size changes of mine and by form changes of yours,
Yeah.
because I don't want to throw my big attacks when you're Mr. Knight and give you free buff. Um, and that all of that also plays into the hand counts a lot with like initiative and whatnot. So it's so much to think about. It's such a crazy matchup. It's awesome.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Like I'm surprised I haven't played this with you before because I had so much fun. I mean, as you mentioned, right? Because we talked about how Conchu is only smacking right a third of the time.
Yeah.
But as you mentioned, right, with this whole chase down thing, I'm kind of able to control it a little more,
Yep.
because I'm able to cycle through my, when I'm running away, hopefully cycling to Conchu or Mr. Knight, whichever I need at the
Right.
time.
Yeah. You can cycle passively. I can't, and that's an advantage that you have.
Yeah.
I only get to cycle shift, on combat interactions unless I have the schemes. But I often don't want to play the draw scheme because I'll just go down in fatigue, and I only have 2 of the other one.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's super
Yeah.
interesting. And also, even though you can only hit big with Conchu a third of the time, you just attacking me in general forces me to either use a feint if I have it, or size change, or play one of my big offensive cards like a shift, Manxum, skirmish, which I don't want to do.
Yeah.
So even you attacking me on your off forms is still good for you a lot of times.
Yeah, there was one critical turn, I think. Well, this card is so good in this matchup. I didn't realize it at the start.
Yeah.
I would definitely highlight this. One, because the artwork is some of my favorite artwork in the game. I just love it. But two, it's just amazing because if you're big, right, you've got these, and you've got looking glasses, or
Mm-hmm.
yeah, which are great options for you defensively normally. But then I get to, well, I mean, this one's not
Right, but
the
Looking
best,
Glass, yeah.
right? But looking glass, right? It worked the time where I attacked you because you had to have this, or Mengsum, And I think that was like those were like the only defenses you could have used to stop me from pushing you away.
Yep.
So, and I'm assuming you didn't have this because that.
No, I didn't. I only had I'm late.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
considered not defending there, but I figured if it was your red 3 and you just boost with a 3 value and you deal me 6 damage, like, then you lethal me on your next Conchu turn, was what I was
Yeah.
thinking. Or force me to use my Manxum Foe, which means I don't have the damage to close it out.
Yeah.
So I figured both those options were bad, so I had to just take it.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it came down to me having to apply pressure because I had to apply pressure, right? It was
Yeah,
like
you had to.
I either lose or I apply pressure. So
Yep.
that's what it came to.
And it's scary to do, but yeah, a lot of times that's what you have to do against Alice.
Yeah, dude, so much fun,
Yeah.
man. Can't
Awesome
believe it.
game.
All right, let's
Yeah,
do
let's
another one.
flip it around. Game 2.
Do
Let's
it.
go.
Yeah.
I guess I'll keep as well. And
Sounds
I
good.
assume you're going to start big.
Yes, that's great.
Alrighty. Good luck. Have fun.
Yeah, you too.
So I will bunny hop. And then I'll maneuver. I think I just take center. And then I'll maneuver again. And you're up.
So you could Travelers Jabber or you could Travelers me, both of which is scary.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll maneuver. And go 1, 2, go 1, 2. I'll maneuver again. I'll go there and there. And it's your turn.
Okay.
This is interesting too. I wonder if I actually should have started small just because
right.
you know, if you do take center stage, right?
Yeah, it's hard to say.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna go ahead and maneuver.
Okay.
And you're 5 away, so I can boost with my garbage. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I will attack Jabber with this. Regroup.
Oof.
That's gonna hurt.
Yes, sir.
So you're already taking 4. And I will deal 2 more. So you take 6.
Yeah.
And then you draw 1. And it's your turn.
I'll maneuver.
Oh, I'm Mr. Knight.
I'll attack you.
I'll play a 5-er.
Sounds good.
Yep, so I take 2.
Yep.
I feel like anytime I have an opportunity to play a 5-value defense against Big Alice, I should probably take it in case it's Snicker Snack.
Yep.
Especially seeing your hand advantage right now. So, alright. My turn. I will maneuver. And maneuver again. And your turn. Also, this map, it's so good because right here, it's like that's the turn I want to double maneuver, and then I can take center on my Moon Knight turn, and I can go as far out as I want, and the Moon Knight hop with a double maneuver really gets you back to center easily. Boosting with the Looking Glass. Alright, Jabber. I will do a feint.
Yep.
Dang it. Wish it was the other one. I'd take 1 less.
Yep. I had it when you were there, but I can't afford it into Fist of Conchu because you can push him away on your Mr. Knight turn. Because you can push him away, and then yeah, you know, you can push him away, then he would just deal 2 to Alice.
Well, Fist has to win, though, so it wouldn't...
Which
oh, on
it
the
would
Mr.
on
Knight.
Mr. Knight.
Yeah, exactly. Right. I get what you're saying. Okay, my turn.
Mm-hmm.
You have center. Maneuver. 1, 2, 3. And maneuver. And I'll end there. Your turn.
Interesting. Why would you do that? Because you have the auto damage one, which would kill Jabber, but you take 3 over that. If I had it.
If you have it.
That's interesting.
But this way you can't really block off Jabberwock with Alice. If I went somewhere else, you could, like more center, like maybe here, you could move Alice up and hit me big and also hide Jabberwock. I want him dead.
There and there. Have Alice attack you.
So let's feint.
Good feint.
Yep. Okay. My turn. I am Khonshu. I'll attack. First action.
Yep. So I will take 3. You discard an. Oh no, I draw first. So I'll go here.
So you're not drawing. You're gonna heal and move.
Oh, sorry. You're right. So I'm taking 3. That's what I do first.
Yep.
Do I need to draw? I think I'll take the draw.
Okay.
And the healing.
Yep. And then I get to draw 3 off your deck.
Yep.
Oh man, I got some real big money hits here.
So I shouldn't have drawn because I drew crap. So you would have seen those.
We're gonna ditch that.
Sounds good.
I get to go any order. Okay. And I have one more action. Maneuver. A boost. And it's your turn.
Ooh, well done. Should have thought about that before I took my draw.
Yep.
And you know that I'm not going to draw into one. Oh, that's fine to overdraw into.
Yeah.
Boost.
Mm-hmm.
I'll maneuver.
The
Oh,
pin.
nice.
Yeah, see my options? They were so good, weren't they? Oh my gosh, dude. Such trash.
All right. Your turn.
Man.
Dude, the 2 cards I drew too were pretty bad too.
Oh
So
my
the next
God.
5 cards in my deck were pretty awful. But I just got rid of all of them, so.
Okay. I'm gonna maneuver. And I'm gonna attack Jabber. Play that skirmish. Come on.
I'm wondering if
You know you want
it's
to.
the 2. I'm wondering if it's the 2. I'll take it. He'll take it.
Taking it. All right, let's go. Get him out of here. And
You switching?
yes, sir. So end of turn, I will go Khonshu.
Sounds good. I'll maneuver. I'll attack you.
You maneuvered first, yeah?
That's correct.
And I am Khonshu. So we'll play one of these. I'll take 3 damage and I'll take the cards.
Yep.
So I draw 2. And I do not take damage because I am Khonshu. Alright. And then it's my turn?
Yep.
I'll start with an attack. There's 3 damage there.
Yep.
And you go small, you want to stay where you're at.
I'll go here.
Okay. Yeah, I'll switch. Let's go Mr. Knight. And I have one more action.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take a maneuver. Go 1, 2, 3. And then it's your turn, so I go Moon Knight.
Sounds good. I'm going to maneuver.
Nice. That always feels so good.
Yeah, it does. All right, I'll go there, and that's my turn.
Okay. I'll hop. I will heal 2.
Uh-huh.
And I gain an action since I moved. So I will maneuver, essentially first action. That's the make you boost 5 spot. I will maneuver again. And I will end there. It's your turn.
All right, I'll maneuver. I'll boost.
Mm-hmm.
I'll attack you.
I'm going to play this. And I will deal the 2 to you. I take, what, 4? 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Now I'm Conchu. I'll maneuver. I will heal. 1, 2. I'll attack. Yes, that's what I wanted to see. I was like, he hasn't played any of them yet. He's got to have one coming up, and you're not going to
Yeah, I
want
was worried about that. I felt like I had to throw it, though.
to... Yeah. I figured you're not going to want a size change, so... Alright, your turn.
Yeah, and you switch.
I go to Mr. Knight, because I'm not going to skip over it, of course.
Yeah, well, fainted.
Oh, duh. Well, I didn't want to anyways. Joke's on you.
That's right. I'll maneuver. Maneuver again, your turn.
I'm Mr. Knight, so I will maneuver. I'll maneuver again. And you can go.
I'll maneuver. I'll boost.
Mm-hmm.
I'll attack with it.
I'll just play a 4 value. Whammy, whammy. Oh my god, why do you do that to me? Ugh! I take 5. So stupid.
Yeah, I was like, okay, I'm forcing him to play one of his 4s. That was
Oh
my
my
thought process.
god. Yeah.
Because I still have 3 of these in there. I'm just waiting
So
for my
annoying.
4s.
Dang it. Alright, well... I'm not gonna hop. I'm gonna make an attack first action.
Oh, faint.
Okay, there's 1 damage.
Yeah.
Alright, I'm gonna attack again. Are you kidding me? Okay, I'll deal 1. Your turn. Yeah, GG.
Yeah.
I'll defend with this. Oh my god. Dang it, you had everything. So, my thought process there was, okay, I counted your cards. I'm like, I can maneuver and boost away and get 5 spaces away. And what are the chances he has a card to boost in order to get to me? And I counted your cards. You had an Eat Me, which is a 3, I'm late, and then you had your 2 reds. So
Yeah.
you had 4 cards that would get you to me. And then I counted, okay, well, if I attack him here and I can get a 5 value attack, what defenses can he have? I was like, well, how do I lose automatically? If he has Skirmish or Feint, that's it. So 2 cards left versus the 4 cards that you could have to boost to get to me to win. And so obviously that's better chances. And Hatter would have saved you on defense, but it would have forced you into small. So I was like, well, Hatter is going to save him, but also it means I don't just die because I'm going into, I'm going into Khonshu, but like maybe he doesn't
Well,
have a big enough attack.
You would have done 2 to me as well.
Yeah, I mean, not that that really matters, but you had 3 cards that would save you, one of which, if you had being Hatter, I might not die on the counterattack, because you'd be forced into small. So 4 cards to boost to get to me, 2 cards to automatically win you the game. I took the better odds.
Yeah.
I had to. I could, like, there's a chance that me maneuvering would have drawn me into specifically the Travelers. But let's see what I would have gotten. That wouldn't have done it. So,
no.
Yeah, I mean, I took the more likely option.
Well, and let's see if I could have gotten to you if you did boost away. Nope.
No, so, but again, I mean, I just played the odds.
You played the odds.
I played,
yeah,
you know,
I mean,
anytime.
I had 4 cards left in here too, so.
Right, anytime I sit there and say, what are the chances, it's always 100%.
That's 100%, that's right.
I mean, still a very close game. I think basically what we've concluded is that you're a better player than me. And it's a completely even matchup.
No.
So you barely beat me both times.
Yeah, I mean, it was so close both times.
Yes. It literally just comes down to 1 or 2 health.
Yeah.
And that's what I just think this matchup is so cool. I think it's super even. As we saw in this game, in particular versus the first one, you were able to stay as Big Alice literally the whole game, except for one time you went small, but you immediately played your form change and switched back to big. And I didn't have any big defenses early game, so you got to just keep smacking me for huge damage.
And I drew all of these within like my first four or 5 draws.
Yeah.
So I was able to just keep the
you just
pressure.
kept smacking me. And like when I was playing against you, like I used this on offense, which form changed me. I think that was the only one that form changed me on offense, actually.
Yeah, you didn't get the mushroom.
So I still did pretty well staying big, but yeah, like you literally never missed like a Big Alice attack. And also, I never got any turns where you couldn't get to me. I got some turns where I was 6 away, but you had the Looking Glass to boost. Or turns when I was 5 away. I had 1 turn 6 away and 2 turns 5 away, and you had the boosts each time.
Yeah.
So.
And the turn you were 6 away, I double maneuvered, but I kind of pinned you.
Oh yeah, that was one of the other 6 away turns. Yeah, but you pinned me.
Yeah, and I had trash that I was able to discard.
Yeah.
Dude, no joke. So.
Dude, that's so stupid. My options were the scheme, that, and the Jabberwock card. It was so bad.
Dude, that's so dumb.
And this matchup does have a lot of RNG to it. I mean, it just is what it is, because this is RNG on what you hit. Mangsum Foe is huge RNG on what you hit.
Yep.
And obviously there's draw order that matters and whatnot, but, you know, and calls made during combat. But usually most of that can get mitigated. It's just mainly these 2 cards in particular that are just super RNG. And
I will say, I had drawn into all of my 1s and I think almost all of my 2s. So me throwing this was, it was like a guaranteed 8 or 9, so that's why I threw it.
Right, right.
And that's why the first one, right, it's literally just whatever, and you fainted it. But the second one, you know, there is some, you know, as you saw, it came down to a 50-50 for you, which was unfortunate. But I do like how that works, where you can save it, and then be like, okay, what all do I have left? All right,
yeah, and that's what I usually end up doing when I play Alice, is it usually comes down to a 50-50 Mangsum, as you've seen multiple times when we've played.
Yeah.
Sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. But yeah, dude, it's always the stupid shift. Oh my gosh. I mean, today it wasn't the shift, thankfully, but I still got the whammy. But
Dude,
that's
there
okay.
was one. It was our Yen Alice, when we were testing out Alice versus Yen, and you hit shift 3 games in a row.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and I really think Alice can do well against Yen, but I didn't win those games because I hit the shift every time.
Every time.
It was so dumb. Oh, man.
Dude.
But, yeah, dude, this matchup is just a total blast. This is one of my favorite matchups, I think. It's just so much fun.
I mean, I would say that. And I've never played this matchup before. I had so much fun playing this matchup. Like, I would just, like, if people are like, you know, like, my wife, Ashley, she loves Alice. I love Moonlight.
Dude.
Like, I could honestly see us sitting down and being like, hey, well, I'll play Alice Moonlight.
Yeah,
like,
try
it's
it.
gonna be a good game.
Yeah,
like,
it's like it's almost like its own game, right? It's like, oh, you want to play Unmatched, or you want to play Villainous, or you want to play whatever. You know, it's like, oh, you want to play Alice Moon Knight?
Alice Moon Knight. Yeah.
It's its own game,
Oh,
dude.
absolutely. And I mean,
Yeah.
I have some of my favorite matchups, right? Of just like because for tournament, right? I'm trying to exploit bad matchups, right? Like
Yeah.
my whole like drafting, especially in Conquest and in also Arsenal. If I can be able to get good matchups for me all the way around, that's what I'm going for, right? I'm not necessarily going for really even games.
Yeah.
Now, my choice first is obviously advantage for me, then even games, then disadvantage if it has to come to it. So
Yeah.
that, hopefully my skill can come out on those even games. But, during the tournament season, most of our plays are like, hey, I want to try this one versus this matchup, which is generally unfavored in one
Yeah.
direction or another.
Exactly. That's the whole
So,
point in like tournament drafting. But yeah, that's why I don't play Alice in tournament, is because of all the RNG. Like,
yeah.
she's so much fun, and she can definitely steal wins. And there's a way to play her well and skillfully where you really mitigate the RNG, but it still, one little thing can change the game, as we've seen in our games today.
Yeah.
But man,
So
what a
much.
great matchup. And I do think, though, that going first and going second, it doesn't really make a big difference, honestly. But the map did make a big difference because Moon Knight being able to run away, Alice needs to have a tighter map to... I mean, this was even-ish, right? But there was still a few turns where it makes it tough on Alice, and Moon Knight never really has those turns because Alice constantly has the initiative.
Mm-hmm.
So...
Yeah. I think too, what was cool about these games is we kind of saw a different strategy. I think because you went first and because of the cards that you had to be able to force your hand advantage a lot, you were going for the kill.
Yeah,
Right? For me in the previous game, yes, I was still going for the kill, which it ended up happening, but I was more looking to just survive.
right.
Right? And here you had me at 3, and I still had 6, 7 cards left in deck.
Yeah, right.
Last game you were at 7 until you had 1 card left in deck. So it's kind of interesting too how I think that was kind of because you got to go first. Take center stage as Conchu.
Yep, yep.
So that is cool that I feel like you can play it either way. As at least from the Moon Knight side, Alice, I think you're still just trying to kill the opponent as you
Yeah,
are in every Alice game.
definitely. Like you
But
said, Alice doesn't win in fatigue. It's always just a beatdown.
yeah,
You either have the damage or you don't. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, yeah, that is
like
interesting
a
though,
more
like you said.
tactical T-Rex.
Yeah, exactly. Definitely more tactical. That's for sure. If we were to do this again on like T-Rex Paddock, both of us would have to just try to kill the other, and it would be a bit different of a dynamic. Kind of like we saw in the second game here, but even more so because Alice can always get to Moon Knight in basically 4 movement, almost always. She never, I don't think, has to use a 4 value boost. I think max would be a 3 value boost to get anywhere from end to end.
Oh, sorry. Do you say Raptor or Rex Paddock?
Oh, I meant Raptor Paddock.
Oh, yes, yes. Sorry, I
Raptor
agree
Paddock.
with you there. I
Rex
was thinking
Paddock
Rex
would
Paddock.
kind of be similar to this, where it'd be like take center, go out, Moon Knight would go all the way around, and then Alice would have to retake center and rinse and repeat. It'd be kind of like Soho was here. And that's really interesting how much the map changes it, but it changes the flow, but it doesn't change the game plan, really. It might change it up for Moon Knight, though. Like you said, you can either go for the kill or you can just go to Outlast. It's hard, though. I didn't have the hand in this game either to Outlast, so I had to just go for the kill. I had, like, all my 2s. I mean, as you see, here's all my feints. Here's both my Insanities. Here's, I guess, 2 of these, but I had 2 of these, and then I had only 1 of the 4s.
I think this is to highlight too.
Oh, yeah, I had all my reds and almost all my yellows.
Yeah, that's the wild part.
And I still had, what, 7 cards left in deck?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, Moon Knight has like 10. He has like 20 defenses. I mean, not 18 defenses.
Yeah.
And then 10 schemes and such. So, and then only defense. So he's got a ton of versatiles to work with. But as you mentioned, like sometimes you can just get, like, I wouldn't say this is a lot, and I've felt it multiple times.
Yep.
In tournament, I felt it against T Rex, where I just had all my reds and yellows, and against that matchup, I'm just trying to run away. So I'm like, no, please,
Yeah, yeah.
please let me have some.
Exactly, right.
So,
So yeah, it can clump up. You can become Captain Condiment, even with Moon Knight.
yeah, Dracula, discount Drac.
Captain Condiment comes for us all.
He does.
Oh, I love that. That's the best thing I ever heard Freaks say.
I know, man. It was so fun.
Never forget. Man. Well, great games. I do think it's definitely an even matchup. I mean, I haven't seen many more matchups that are as 50-50 as this one, all things considered. Of course, full advantage can swing things a little bit in either direction, and so can starting position. Well, that's included in full advantage, but it's still like pretty dang close no matter what you do, I think, with this matchup. And RNG is going to play a factor at some point, but you just got to try and mitigate that, and I guess pray to RNGesus that he's on your side. I don't know. It's a super fun matchup, though. I think very even.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I agree. It's a lot of fun, and I think there's so many dynamics, right? There's just, everybody has the damage to kill each other, and
Yeah.
everybody kind of has the defense also to deal with
Yeah.
each other, which is just, that's what makes it so even. So it's so much fun.
Yep, definitely. All right, well, I hope everybody enjoyed watching this. We had a ton of fun playing, and looking forward to the next matchup, of course. But thanks for playing, Chad. It's always a blast.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
No problem.
All right, guys, there you have it. That was Moon Knight versus Alice, and what a blast these games were. They came down very close, both of them. Chad did walk away with the win each time, but it's just like by hanging on by a thread there, everything is just on razor's edge in terms of how close this matchup is. It's so much fun. It's very skill-based. There is some luck involved, of course, as we saw in our game with Alice. I would have had the win if I hit the right card with Manxum, and I lost if not. So it was a 50-50, and honestly, that happens to me in a lot of my Alice games as they come down to 50-50s with Manxum foe. And Momentous Shift is the favorite card that loves to jump to the top of my deck whenever I play that card, which is horrible because then there goes a bunch of your damage output in the Shift card itself, and also the Manxum foe hits a 1 boost value. It's just an absolute disaster. But that's just part of card gaming, right? Luck plays a big factor in all card games, and you just got to make the best of it and try to maximize your chances of things working out for you and make the best with what you've got. So again, this matchup was just so much fun. If you haven't played it, I would highly recommend you do so. And also, it's not a big surprise Chad won both games. I mean, he is the new Summer of Legends 2022 Grand Champion. So congrats to him for that. If you missed it, definitely check out the tournament videos. They're up on the official Unmatched Tournament YouTube channel. You can watch them. But Chad took it all the way this time, and it's been a long time coming. So big congrats to you, buddy, for that one. You'll love to see it. And that's going to be it for this video, but also make sure you guys give a like and subscribe to the channel if you're not already, and also consider going and checking out Chad's channel, which is just Unmatchad. He puts out some really fun, thought-provoking content, some puzzles, and other cool videos. So there's not a whole lot there yet, but he's working on it, so go show him some support if you enjoy what you saw from him today. And that's going to do it for this one, guys. So again, give it a like, subscribe, consider supporting me on Patreon if you want to try and get your matchup featured in one of these videos. And I appreciate all the support once again, and I'm happy to be back on YouTube here. So looking forward to the next one. But until next time, everybody, thanks again for watching. I'm ZeroSkater12, and I'll see you next time.